A little girl sat silently in the courtroom, rehearsed and controlled. But one secret signal to a police dog made him charge forward, stopping the court in its tracks. What happened next shocked the judge and changed everything. But before we get into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And if you love extraordinary police dog stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The fluorescent lights of Courtroom 7B cast a harsh glow over the polished oak and somber faces that filled the downtown Chicago courthouse. Judge Eleanor Wilson's chambers had seen countless custody battles, but something about this case made the air feel heavier than usual. Officer Ryan Mitchell adjusted his uniform collar, steel blue eyes scanning the room with practiced precision. Beside him, Apollo, his 4-year-old German Shepherd partner, sat perfectly still, his dark coat gleaming under the institutional lighting. All rise! The Honorable Judge Eleanor Wilson presiding in the matter of Anderson versus Ellis, announced the bailiff. As the judge took her seat, Officer Mitchell noticed Apollo's ears twitch forward, an almost imperceptible change that most wouldn't register. But after 3 years together in Chicago's K-9 unit, Mitchell had learned to read every muscle movement. Something had caught Apollo's attention. Mitchell followed the dog's gaze to a small figure seated in the front row. 8-year-old Lily Anderson sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the scuffed tile floor. Her navy dress and white cardigan seemed too formal for a child her age, her brown hair pulled back in a tight bun that emphasized the paleness of her face. Unlike most children forced to sit through court proceedings, she wasn't fidgeting. She was unnaturally still. On one side of her sat Claire Anderson, her mother, a woman whose exhausted eyes and bitten fingernails betrayed weeks of sleepless nights. On the other side, Marcus Ellis, Chicago business mogul, stepfather of 3 years, and the picture of composed confidence in his tailored charcoal suit. His hand rested possessively on the back of Lily's chair. Apollo's body tensed slightly, the change so subtle that only Mitchell noticed. The dog's training was impeccable. He'd remained calm during hostage negotiations, drug busts, and active shooter scenarios. Yet something about this sterile courtroom, or someone in it, had triggered his alertness. Today, we continue the custody hearing for Lily Anderson, Judge Wilson stated, her voice cutting through the hushed murmurs. I remind everyone that my sole concern is the welfare of the child. 3 weeks earlier, Mitchell had been running Apollo through their weekly tracking exercises at Jefferson Park. The autumn morning air carried the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves as Apollo weaved through the obstacle course, his powerful muscles working with fluid precision. That's it, boy, Mitchell had called as Apollo successfully located the hidden training aid in record time. Perfect. Fellow officers often joked that Mitchell understood dogs better than people. At 34, after 12 years on the force and the last 3 in the K-9 unit, he'd developed a reputation for quiet competence rather than professional socializing. His divorce 2 years ago had only intensified his devotion to his work and to Apollo. That particular Tuesday, they'd been wrapping up training when the call came in, a routine welfare check on a child following a teacher's report of concerning behavior changes. Nothing that would typically require a K-9 unit. But they were closest to the location, an upscale townhouse in Lincoln Park. Claire Anderson had answered the door, initially confused by the presence of a police dog, until Mitchell explained that Apollo was his partner. He's perfectly friendly to civilians, ma'am, he'd assured her as they stepped into a home that could have been featured in an architectural magazine. That was when he first met Lily, peering cautiously from behind the staircase, her small face lighting up at the sight of Apollo despite her mother's obvious distress. Lily's been having a difficult time lately, Claire had explained, voice lowered. Her teacher noticed she's withdrawn at school, not participating like she used to. Mitchell had observed as Lily approached Apollo with a caution that seemed born of both fascination and fear. What struck him as unusual was Apollo's response. The dog had focused intently on the child, his posture alert in a way typically reserved for his working mode. Has anything changed at home recently? Mitchell had asked, noting how Lily flinched at a sound from upstairs. Marcus is under a lot of pressure with his business. We all are, Claire had replied too quickly. He's a good provider. We're very fortunate. When Marcus Ellis emerged from his office minutes later, his handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Officer, I appreciate your concern, but I assure you everything is fine here. Lily's just adjusting to her new school. Isn't that right, Princess? Lily had nodded obediently, but Apollo's subtle growl was audible only to Mitchell's trained ear. Back at the precinct, Mitchell couldn't shake his unease about the Anderson-Ellis home visit. Apollo's behavior had been unusual enough to warrant a note in his report, something he rarely needed to do with his meticulously trained partner. The next morning, Mitchell requested the case file on the family. Nothing immediately suspicious emerged. Marcus Ellis had a spotless record. CEO of Ellis Development, major philanthropist, connected to half of Chicago's elite. Claire Anderson Ellis had left her career after marrying Ellis. And Lily, straight A student until recently, no previous concerns from teachers or counselors. Officer Mitchell, Dr. Rebecca Torres, the department's child psychologist, approached his desk. I saw your flag on the Anderson-Ellis welfare check. Want to tell me what prompted that? Over coffee, Mitchell described Apollo's reactions and the subtle dynamics he'd observed. Children exposed to controlling environments develop specific coping mechanisms, Torres explained. The excessive stillness you described, the rehearsed responses, those can be indicators. Not proof, but worth attention. The dog's reaction is interesting. They can pick up on stress hormones, microexpressions, even changes in breathing patterns we might miss. Over the next 2 weeks, Mitchell arranged several follow-up visits to the Anderson home. The pattern was consistent. Apollo's unusual attentiveness toward Lily, the child's subtle relaxation around the dog, and Marcus Ellis's increasing irritation with the police presence. During one visit when Ellis was absent, Mitchell observed Lily's natural affinity for Apollo. He's a very special dog, Mitchell told her as she tentatively stroked Apollo's fur. He's trained to understand special signals, ways to communicate without speaking. Lily's eyes had widened. Like secret codes? Exactly like that. Apollo knows dozens of commands that look like ordinary movements to everyone else. Something in Lily's expression shifted. A spark of interest that seemed to break through her carefully maintained facade. After that visit, Mitchell consulted with his sergeant about his growing concerns. Ellis has filed a formal complaint about your repeated visits, Sergeant Diaz informed him. He's also accelerated the custody hearing. He's seeking full custody of Lily, claiming Claire is emotionally unstable. That's textbook isolation tactics, Mitchell argued. I know that, and you know that, Diaz responded. But Ellis has connections with the police commissioner and half the judges in Cook County. We need more than a dog's behavior and your instincts. 2 days before the custody hearing, Mitchell made a decision that could potentially end his career. He arranged to meet Claire and Lily at a small park near their home, bringing Apollo under the guise of a community canine demonstration. While Claire spoke with another parent, Mitchell knelt beside Lily on a secluded bench. Lily, do you remember how I told you Apollo understands special signals? He asked, keeping his voice casual as the child petted the German Shepherd. She nodded, her eyes darting periodically toward her mother, checking if they were being watched. I'm going to show you a special one, Mitchell continued, demonstrating a subtle movement, fingers briefly pressed together, then separated, almost like smoothing out an invisible piece of paper. When Apollo sees this, he knows someone needs his help right away. Lily practiced the movement several times, her small fingers mimicking Mitchell's. Apollo watched intently, his training kicking in as he recognized the new command being established. This is just between us, Mitchell explained. Sometimes it's hard for grown-ups to understand when kids need help. But Apollo always understands. What happens when he sees it? Lily asked, her voice barely audible. He comes to protect whoever makes the signal. It's his most important job. Something in the child's expression shifted. A flicker of hope quickly masked by practiced neutrality. She glanced toward the playground. Marcus doesn't like dogs, Lily, Mitchell said carefully, if you ever feel scared or unsafe, this signal works anywhere. Apollo can see it, even in places where people aren't supposed to talk. Like court? The question revealed how much the child understood about her situation, far more than any 8-year-old should. Exactly like court, Mitchell confirmed, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he was potentially crossing professional boundaries. The morning of the custody hearing arrived with a tension that hung in the air like an approaching storm. Judge Eleanor Wilson's reputation preceded her. 23 years on the bench had earned her both respect and fear among Chicago's legal community. Mitchell sat in the gallery's second row, Apollo lying at his feet in full service harness. His presence had initially raised eyebrows, but Mitchell had proper authorization. K-9 officers weren't required to separate from their partners during testimony. Claire Anderson sat beside her single attorney, a competent but clearly outmatched family law specialist named Janet Kaplan. The contrast between the legal representations couldn't have been more stark. Ellis's team with their matching leather portfolios versus Kaplan with her slightly worn briefcase. Marcus Ellis entered like he owned the room, nodding to Judge Wilson with familiar ease. Mitchell noticed how several court staff straightened as he passed, the subtle deference given to wealth and influence. Ellis stopped to shake hands with someone in the gallery, a man Mitchell recognized as a police commissioner's assistant. Ellis's lead attorney, Lawrence Henderson, presented their case first. The narrative he painted was meticulously crafted. Claire Anderson as an emotionally unstable mother, manufacturing concerns about her daughter to alienate her from a loving stepfather. Photographs of family vacations, school events, and charitable galas scrolled across a presentation screen, showing the perfect modern family. Mrs. Anderson Ellis has become increasingly paranoid, Henderson stated, culminating in multiple unnecessary police welfare checks that have traumatized the child. Claire's testimony came next, her voice steadying as she described the changes in Lily since Marcus had become increasingly controlling. She stopped talking about her day, stopped having friends over. She follows rules I never created. Henderson's cross-examination was surgical. Isn't it true that you've been treated for anxiety, Mrs. Ellis? That you project your fears onto your daughter? By the time Mitchell was called to testify, the courtroom atmosphere had grown heavy with unspoken accusations. He approached the stand, Apollo maintaining perfect heel position beside him. Mitchell carefully recounted only what he had documented in official reports. Lily's demeanor, the home environment, the interactions he witnessed. He made no mention of Apollo's reactions or his own suspicions, knowing they would be immediately objected to as speculation. Henderson's cross-examination was exactly as aggressive as Mitchell had anticipated, implying that Mitchell had overstepped his authority and demonstrated bias against Marcus Ellis. Throughout, Apollo remained perfectly still beside the witness stand, though Mitchell could feel the subtle tension in his partner's body. As Mitchell stepped down, Judge Wilson announced, "I'd like to speak with Lily Anderson in my chambers. Parents' attorneys may observe, but parents will remain here." The judge's request wasn't unusual in high-conflict custody cases, but Mitchell noticed how Ellis leaned forward slightly, his hand gripping the table edge. For the first time, a crack appeared in his perfect composure. Judge Wilson's chambers offered a stark contrast to the formal courtroom. Bookshelves lined with legal texts and a comfortable seating area designed to put children at ease. A court reporter sat discreetly in the corner, while the attorneys positioned themselves by the wall. Through a partially open door, Mitchell could see Lily seated in an oversized leather chair opposite the judge. Apollo remained beside Mitchell in the courtroom, both positioned with a clear view into the chambers through the doorway. The dog's attention had not wavered, his dark eyes fixed on Lily with an intensity that would have concerned Mitchell in any other circumstance. "Lily, do you know why we're all here today?" Judge Wilson asked. Her normally authoritative voice softened. "Because my mom and Marcus are fighting about me," the child responded, the rehearsed quality of her answer evident even from a distance. "That's right, and my job is to figure out what's best for you. So I need you to tell me the truth about how things are at home. Can you do that?" Lily nodded, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. Do you feel safe at home with your mom and Marcus? Yes, Your Honor. The words came quickly, but Mitchell noticed the slight tremble in Lily's shoulders. Judge Wilson continued with standard questions about school, home routines, and relationships with both parents. Lily's answers remained polite and proper, yet increasingly mechanical. Lily, has anyone told you what to say to me today? The judge asked directly. The child's eyes darted briefly toward Ellis's attorney before returning to her lap. No, Your Honor. Are you sure? It's okay to tell me if someone did. The chamber fell silent. Mitchell could feel Apollo's muscles tensing beside him. Marcus said I should tell you I'm happy, Lily finally whispered. He said if I didn't, bad things would happen to Mom. Ellis's attorney stepped forward. Your Honor, I object to... Judge Wilson silenced him with a raised hand. Mr. Henderson, you're here as an observer only. Keep your objections for the courtroom. What kind of bad things, Lily? The judge asked gently. The child's eyes welled with tears. But before she could answer, Marcus Ellis burst through the main chamber door into the courtroom, his face flushed with anger. This is outrageous. She's being manipulated. Court officers moved to intercept him, but Ellis was already storming toward the chambers. In that critical moment, Mitchell saw it. Lily's small hand made the subtle movement they had practiced, fingers pressing together, then separating in a motion so slight it would have been missed by anyone not specifically watching for it. Apollo's reaction was instantaneous. Before Mitchell could issue a verbal command, the German Shepherd launched forward with powerful precision, clearing the distance between them and the chambers in seconds. Court officers reached for their weapons, the gallery erupted in shocked exclamations, and Judge Wilson rose from her seat. Order! She thundered, her commanding voice freezing everyone in place except Apollo, who slipped past the bailiff and positioned himself directly in front of Lily's chair, his body forming a protective barrier between her and the doorway. Mitchell rushed forward. Apollo, hold, he commanded. Though the dog had already assumed a controlled protective stance, rather than an aggressive one. Exactly as his training specified for the signal Lily had given, the courtroom descended into chaos. Ellis was restrained by court officers shouting about that dangerous animal, while his attorneys demanded Apollo's immediate removal. Claire was on her feet, confusion and hope warring on her face. Everyone will be silent! Judge Wilson's voice cut through the tumult. Officer Mitchell, explain what just happened. Now. Mitchell stood at attention, acutely aware that his career hung in the balance. Your Honor, Apollo responded to a distress signal. What distress signal? The judge demanded. Before Mitchell could answer, Lily spoke, her voice suddenly stronger, as she moved to stand beside Apollo, one hand resting on his back. I did it! I gave him the secret signal. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes on the small girl, who suddenly seemed to have found her voice. Marcus hurts me, she continued, the words tumbling out as if a dam had broken. He says no one will believe me because he's important. He makes me practice what to say to teachers and doctors. He hurts Mom too when she tries to stop him. Apollo remained perfectly still beside her, his training allowing him to maintain his protective position while staying non-aggressive, a living shield between Lily and the man she feared. Judge Wilson's expression shifted from shock to resolute determination. Officer Mitchell, approach the bench with your K-9. Bailiff, secure Mr. Ellis. Court reporter, ensure every word is transcribed. Your Honor, I can explain, Mitchell began, standing before Judge Wilson with Apollo and Lily beside him. You taught my K-9 partner to respond to a signal from Lily, Mitchell continued, a nonverbal distress signal that she could use if she felt threatened or unsafe. It was unorthodox, I acknowledge that, but you believed the child was in danger and wouldn't be able to say so freely, Judge Wilson finished, her piercing gaze evaluating him. How long have you been planning this, Officer Mitchell? 3 days, Your Honor, after the multiple welfare visits where both Apollo and I observed concerning patterns. The judge turned her attention to Lily, who stood with one hand still resting on Apollo's back. Lily, did Officer Mitchell tell you to say these things about your stepfather? No, ma'am, Lily answered, her voice small but clearer than before. He just showed me how to call Apollo if I was scared. He said Apollo would understand even if grown-ups didn't. And why were you scared today? The judge asked. Lily glanced toward Ellis, whose eyes burned with cold fury. Because Marcus said if I told anyone what happens at home, he would make Mom go away forever. He said no one would believe me because he knows all the judges and police chiefs. Ellis's lead attorney stepped forward. Your Honor, these are clearly fabricated allegations. The officer has compromised his K-9's training to manipulate a child into... You'll demand nothing in my courtroom, Mr. Henderson. Judge Wilson cut him off sharply. With Apollo beside her, Lily's words came more freely. She described methodical psychological abuse, being locked in her room for mistakes, like leaving toys out, being forced to repeat scripted answers before school each day, watching Marcus threaten her mother when they thought she was asleep. He has a special room in the basement where the punishment happens, she explained, her voice dropping to a whisper. It has a timer on the door. If I cry or make noise, he adds more time. Claire covered her mouth, shock evident on her face. The renovation project, she murmured. He said it was a wine cellar. I've never even seen it finished. Ellis lunged forward again, despite the restraining hands. This is absurd. The dog charged at me. This entire proceeding is compromised. Judge Wilson had heard enough. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Ellis to the holding area. I'm issuing an immediate emergency protective order for both Lily and Claire Anderson. As Ellis was removed, still protesting, Judge Wilson turned to Mitchell. Officer, while your methods were unorthodox, they appear to have been warranted. I would like Apollo's training records and a full report on the signal system you established submitted to this court by tomorrow. Furthermore, she continued, addressing the entire court, I'm ordering an immediate search of the Ellis residence, specifically the basement area Lily described, and a full investigation into these allegations. Mitchell stepped forward. Your Honor, with your permission, Apollo and I would like to assist with that search. His training in detecting signs of distress could be valuable. Judge Wilson nodded her approval. Court reporter, please note that I'm formally requesting Officer Mitchell and K-9 Apollo's presence for the execution of the search warrant. The judge then looked directly at Lily, her stern expression softening. Lily, what Apollo did today was very brave, and so were you. For the first time since Mitchell had met her, Lily smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from that of a fearful child to one showing the first spark of renewed confidence. As Mitchell and Apollo left the courtroom, they found the hallway in controlled chaos. Ellis was being processed for transport to holding, his expensive suit incongruous with the handcuffs securing his wrists. When he spotted Mitchell and Apollo, his composed facade cracked completely. You'll regret this, he hissed. Do you have any idea who I am? Who my friends are? Mitchell kept Apollo at a perfect heel position, the dog's disciplined calm a stark contrast to Ellis's unraveling control. Mr. Ellis, I'd advise you to save your statements for your attorney. Ellis lunged unexpectedly against the officer's grip, his face contorted. That mutt should be put down, and you... Apollo remained steady, not reacting to the aggressive movement, further evidence of his exceptional training. Add threatening a police officer to the charges, one of the officers noted calmly. Detective Sophia Reyes approached Mitchell, an experienced investigator with Chicago PD's Special Victims Unit. She had been called in immediately following Judge Wilson's orders. That was something else, Mitchell, she said, nodding toward Apollo. Judge Wilson's already signed the search warrant for Ellis's home. We move in 30 minutes. The search of the Ellis residence revealed exactly what Lily had described. A soundproofed room in the basement, disguised as a wine cellar, but equipped with a sophisticated locking system and timer. CSI technicians documented everything, from the camera monitoring system to the small cot in the corner. He recorded it all, Reyes said quietly, showing Mitchell a hidden panel containing digital storage devices. Probably his insurance to keep the child and mother in line. Now it's evidence that's going to put him away for a very long time. Apollo moved methodically through the space, alerting to specific areas that later revealed additional evidence, a child's drawings hidden under the cot, depicting scenes that made the hardened investigators fall silent. Back at the courthouse, Claire and Lily waited in a secure conference room, accompanied by Dr. Torres. When Mitchell and Apollo returned, Lily immediately went to the dog, wrapping her arms around him with a trust that spoke volumes. "Thank you," Claire said to Mitchell, her voice steady for the first time since he'd met her, "for believing what I couldn't even fully see." Apollo deserves the credit," Mitchell replied. He knew something was wrong from that first day. Dr. Torres joined them, notepad in hand. "Judge Wilson has expedited this case completely. Ellis's bail hearing is already scheduled, though given the evidence collected today and his behavior in court, bail is unlikely." Detective Reyes approached with news. "Ellis's associates are scrambling to distance themselves. 2 have already come forward with statements about things they witnessed." Judge Wilson entered the conference room, her judicial robes replaced by a cardigan and slacks. She knelt to Lily's level. "I wanted you to know," she said gently, "that what you did today helped us understand what was happening. You were very brave." Lily looked up at the judge. "Apollo helped me be brave." Wilson smiled, then turned to Mitchell. "Officer, the court will be issuing a formal commendation for both you and Apollo. Your actions, while unconventional, exemplified the highest principles of protection and service." "Furthermore," Wilson continued, "I'll be consulting with child advocacy experts about implementing a formal canine assistance program for traumatized children in court proceedings. What we witnessed today suggests possibilities we should explore systematically." As the judge departed, Mitchell knelt beside Apollo, his hand running along the dog's sleek coat. What had begun as a routine welfare check had transformed into something that might change how the legal system protected its most vulnerable participants. Claire approached with Lily beside her. "Officer Mitchell, the doctor says we should establish normal routines as much as possible in the coming days." Lily was wondering, could Apollo come visit sometime? Lily finished, her voice stronger than Mitchell had ever heard it. Mitchell smiled. "Apollo and I would be honored. He's pretty good at board games, though he always wants to be the dog piece in Monopoly." The small joke earned him the second genuine smile he'd seen from Lily, a precious sign of a child beginning the long journey back to normal childhood. Have you ever witnessed the incredible intuition of a service animal? Apollo's story reminds us that sometimes animals can sense things that humans might miss, detecting emotions, fears, and needs that go unspoken. Their ability to read subtle body language and changes in behavior often exceeds our own perceptive abilities. What signals do you think animals pick up on that humans might miss? Science tells us that dogs can detect changes in our body chemistry, micro-expressions, and even subtle shifts in our breathing patterns. Apollo's training enhanced these natural abilities, but many pet owners report similar experiences of their animals sensing distress, illness, or danger before it becomes obvious. Would you trust a canine officer's instincts in a courtroom situation? Apollo's unprecedented action in Judge Wilson's courtroom raises fascinating questions about how we might better incorporate these extraordinary animals into our justice system, especially when protecting vulnerable witnesses who may be unable to speak freely. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever seen an animal understand something before humans caught on? We'd love to hear your stories. If you found Apollo and Officer Mitchell's story moving, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another incredible canine hero tale. Our channel brings you the most extraordinary stories of police dogs going above and beyond the call of duty. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate the remarkable bond between handlers and their canine partners. Check out our previous videos appearing on your screen now to discover more amazing stories of four-legged heroes who serve and protect with unwavering loyalty. Remember, sometimes the most powerful voice for justice doesn't speak at all. It barks.